All right, today we are diving into what can only be described as a bombshell audit report on Andhra Pradesh's finances. And let me tell you, it's a story packed with just staggering numbers, some pretty big broken promises, and, well, a whole lot of unexpected political theater. So the whole analysis we're looking at today kicks off with this really striking observation. It perfectly sets the stage, This powerful contrast between what's happening in public versus the financial reality behind the scenes. And that theme, it runs through this entire story. Okay, let's get into it.
So yeah, the whole story really hangs on this contrast. Think about it. On one side, you've got this performance on a stage, right? It's designed to get applause. But on the other side, you have the performance of the state's finances. And that's meant for some serious scrutiny.
And this right here just perfectly illustrates that core conflict. I mean, out in public, you have this celebration, a minister playing a historical hero who fought against exploitation. But at the exact same time, behind the scenes, the official auditor, the CAG, is dropping a report that calls the state's own financial management into question. The irony is just, wow.
All right, let's get into the nitty-gritty, the hard numbers. And we're going to start with a really big one. The state borrowed an absolutely mind-boggling amount of money. So the big question the CAG report is basically asking is, where did all that money actually go?
Yeah, just let that number sink in for a second. We're talking over 87,000 crore rupees borrowed in just one single financial year. But borrowing money, that's not the whole story, is it? It's what you do with it that really counts.
And this is where it gets really interesting. When you break it down, you'd hope that when a state borrows money, it's for long-term investments, right? Building roads, hospitals, infrastructure, things for the future. But the audit? It found that a massive 76% went to just keeping the lights on. We're talking basic stuff like salaries, pensions, and paying interest on other debts.
And this right here? This table really drives that point home. The gap between what was promised and what was actually delivered is just huge. Look at this. The government budgeted over 45,000 crores for big capital projects. But what did they actually spend? A little over 16,000 crores. That's a shortfall of more than 29,000 crore. That's over 65%. To put it simply, they delivered barely a third of the new assets they promised to build for the state's future. But believe it or not, it actually gets worse. What we're about to see next is probably the most jaw-dropping detail in this entire report. It's all about the state's day-to-day financial independence, or, well, the complete lack of it. So let me ask you this. Just take a guess. Out of 365 days in a year, for how many of those days was the state of Andhra Pradesh actually financially independent? How many days could it manage its own cash flow without needing an emergency loan from the Reserve Bank of India? The answer? 8. Just 8 days. I'm not kidding. For the other 357 days of the year, the state was basically living on life support, completely dependent on emergency loans from the RBI just to pay its daily bills.
And this table shows us exactly what that life support looked like. It breaks down all the different types of emergency loans they took. And the total? Over 1.7 lakh crore. But look, this isn't free money. The really crucial part is that last column, the interest paid. The state shelled out over 300 crores in interest just for the privilege of surviving day to day. And you gotta ask, what could that 300 crores have been used for instead? Schools? Hospitals? Roads?
But the story doesn't stop there. Not even close. The audit also started digging into the whole issue of transparency, specifically debts that were apparently being kept off the official government books.
So, what are off-budget borrowings? Well, the source we're looking at has this perfect analogy. It's the fiscal equivalent of hiding your shopping bags in the trunk of the car. These are real, actual debts, but they're not shown in the main budget. And of course, what that does is it can make the state's finances look a whole lot healthier than they really are.
And this is where we see a massive contradiction highlighted in the report. On one hand, you have the state government officially telling the central government, nope, no off-budget borrowings here. But on the other hand, what did the CAG find? They found over 27,000 crore rupees worth of these hidden debts sitting right there, just off the books. And look, according to the audit, this wasn't just some one-off thing. The source points to what it calls a pattern of creative accounting. We're talking about billions, thousands of crores in misclassified spending, revenues getting booked in the wrong places, just a whole mess of things that when you add them all up really distorted the true financial picture of the state. So, after digging through all of these details, what was the CAG's final verdict? Well, the report basically creates a dashboard, and it is just covered in flashing red flags for the state's fiscal health. So what does this all really add up to? Well, let's just run through the list. Key fiscal targets breached. The state's debt growing at a really alarming rate. And on top of all that, you have tens of thousands of crores in hidden debt and, let's just call them irregular transactions. The way the source puts it, it's basically a damning report card.
So, to wrap this all up, what's the big picture? Despite all the promises of being fiscally disciplined, the audit really paints a picture of a state that's just surviving on a daily lifeline from the central bank, all while failing to invest that borrowed money in its own future.
And that brings us right back to where we started. What's the real performance of a government? Is it the costume drama on stage, or is it the cold, hard numbers on the balance sheet? It's a question that, really, every citizen should be asking, because at the end of the day, the numbers, well, they don't lie.